Happy Thursday, everybody. September
Yes.
5th, season 1, episode 26. Just coming off of Explore. How you doing, Nick?
Yeah. I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to another great episode of Cloud Foundry Weekly.
You get
Man, I'm still getting caught up from last week, but last week was awesome.
That's what I was
And
going to ask. Did you finally get caught up on rest? I know we were going full bore all last week, so.
yeah, I think I'm getting there. I'm getting caught up on emails and just trying to get back into sync and things like that. But yeah, I think I'm getting close.
Yeah, come back
Uh,
from a week off and you got, 4 billion emails that you got to go through and figure out which ones are important. Bunch
it
of
was definitely
follow-ups from Explore.
definitely not a week off for me at
Yep.
least. It was,
Yep.
yeah. But anywho, yeah.
Well, I'm
So
excited about today, man. This is, again, one of those things that's right up your wheelhouse. We're going to be talking AI. I think we're going to take a little bit different approach on it this time. Spring
hmm
AI
hmm
this time, but
hmm
how excited are you?
Oh, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great educational session. So our session that we did with David Wu is very popular, and he did a great class in general. And I had a more of a Python focused theme, but we've got a very special guest here to show us really how to get started with Spring AI from like that dev flow, and then we can kind of tie that into how we see that running within the Cloud Foundry ecosystem, things like that.
All right.
So.
Well, with that, let's go ahead and we'll bring Adib on. So, Adib is a distinguished engineer here at Tanzu. He was the author of Securing Cloud Applications, and he helps large customers design and build cloud native applications and platforms. So, he's held roles from developer to CTO with a focus on building secure, efficient, and economical software systems. How you doing, Adib?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for hosting me today.
No problem. I know, this is going to be something. If you've ever watched these shows, Adib, Nick just gets so animated when we start talking about AI. I think this is his favorite topic. He gets excited. It's fun to watch him get all spun up. So I can't wait to see what he does with your talk today.
I got to admit, I always like to joke that I belong to three religions. Those three religions are Postgres, Spring, and Cloud Foundry in the order that I joined them. I think I'm going to add AI to that religion. So,
Well, that's good because I
now
know
Cool.
I
Nick's
can
like a
safely
Sherpa
say
here.
I belong to four religions, in the
Yep.
order I joined them. Postgres, Spring, Cloud Foundry, and AI. So,
Excellent.
That's a great combination.
Yep.
Shout out to Deshaun. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you'll have some great commentary. And if you want to jump in, I can send you the link too. Just let me know. We could have a party in here. But yeah, let's. We can't forget our first question, Nikki. We always forget it, and they're always
We
like, "Whoops,
do.
20 minutes in. Like,
Yep.
we forgot to do what we're supposed to do first." So, if you've seen the show or not, Adib, we like to ask our guests the kind of icebreaker or to get the show started. Do you remember your first CF push, and what was that like?
oh
And it's
God.
usually a pretty interesting anecdote to share with the audience.
Yeah, first CF push was pretty interesting. It's kind of how I got into Pivotal back in 2014. I went through the interview process. Spring Boot was like 1.0 or 0.9 something. For my interview, I did like a live coding demo showing how my future manager how you can write stuff, and then day one he was like, "Hey Adib, here's the internet, learn Cloud Foundry." And I'm like, "Cloud Foundry, isn't that the thing I got on a USB stick when I went to a meetup at the Java user group in Vancouver back when there was like a Cloud Foundry on a USB stick?" And he's like, "Yes, that thing." So I went through and I had some did the CF push, and it was like total head explosion because I realized in that instant that the combination of Spring Boot plus microservices plus Cloud Foundry was going to be transformative for the industry. And I think it was one of those like I couldn't one of those things where you're going through stuff and you just can't get out of your chair until you've gone through everything, tried everything.
Yep.
And then after that, it was like an epic kind of like, I need my own Cloud Foundry on my own hardware. So I bought a bunch of Intel NUCs and figured out how to hack up ESXi with the help of, I think, one of your my favorite people in in the tech world within the Tanzu world, Mark Fines, and he helped me with that. And I had my own little cluster of Cloud Foundry that I could drag around to customers. Like literally, I would show up, throw it on a table. So let's install PCF at the time, right? Like AKA Taz today. But it was fun.
Well, shout out to Findsy. I mean, that man's had more impact on the industry with Cloud Foundry than he cares to admit. But it's amazing how many people know his name.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. And then side note, I'm adding a mental note, Nikki. We really need to do a home lab episode because this keeps coming up.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, we need to do a home lab. You know, I would love to get, well, talk about your labs. Man, we should try to see if William Lamb would come on and give some of his insights.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would really help our numbers. But yeah, shout out to Deshaun because we were talking to you. So a complete tangent, right? So ES6i vSphere released in 8.0 U3 new NVMe tiering support. So you can offload RAM to NVMe. And I think that's really going to help out the home lab sitch, especially within the he's beat me to the punch. Yeah, so Deshaun has been toying around with trying to get this installed on a laptop to be really portable, right? And having the NVMe tiering would really help out here in terms of system requirements. So, well, maybe we'll have to keep us posted here. But yes, home lab themed, having a Tanzu platform for CF in a box portable would be awesome. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, look at this.
Oh.
Shout out to James.
Shout out to
James is watching us today. Look who Adib's bringing into the show. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and jump in because we're talking, we're going to have this, we want to start talking about home lab themes. We're going to end up starting a Spring AI and an AI theme. I mean, that's been a theme kind of throughout this. We've got a security theme. Adib, you did some talks, at Explore. AI was very present at Explore and talking about it. What's your intention on talking us through today?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is offer like a very gentle introduction to some of the key concepts that are needed for building AI-powered applications. Like all of us are using the various AI assistants, but like what does it take to add AI to an app that you have? Maybe you work in a bank and your boss walks in and says, we need to add a chatbot or we need to build some AI-powered feature within our application. Maybe you want to do appointment scheduling for your financial advisors. Maybe you have a call center application and you want to be able to switch from a chatbot to talking to a human, and you want the AI to summarize things quickly. Maybe things that like what I see a lot of customers wanting to do is enhance an existing workflow by making it more efficient, by allowing the human that's performing those steps to use AI-powered assistants. Like we have as developers, Copilot and all these various AI assistants. But what happens if you're a mortgage like specialist and you're checking to see if you should grant a loan to someone or not? Why can't the AI help you with that, right? Make your job a little bit easier. If you're an insurance adjudicator handling claims, why can't you use AI to make that faster? So I want to make sure that all of the platform engineers on this stream today, all of the developers on the stream, to completely demystify what are certain key concepts, like what's an embedding really? Like, can I do something with just embeddings without, going to a language model? Can this stuff like, when I write code, does it only work with one model, or can it work with multiple models? This is the kind of stuff I want to get into.
Well, and it was interesting. I think, we had talked about, previously we'd had the show on RAG applications here, got a lot of people talking, about AI and what they could do with it, the use cases. Nick did an AI to help him with his scheduling. We had cases coming up with people saying, hey, we have a hard time reading our HR policies. Could we create an AI to go in and help us know what our travel policy is or what our, maternity leave policy is? I think there's a lot of great use cases out there. And with the fact that we're bringing the GenAI tile into Taz and with Spring AI, we're really opening up. It's really kind of your creativity and your limit of what you want to do, is what the possibilities are and how businesses could use this.
Yeah. The key piece of advice I give to everybody and all customers is just start experimenting. this reminds me so much of when I started really as a professional developer, roughly around 1995, and then you had like the rise of the internet. And we started off with like literally CGI bin, C++, web apps, and then then you had the revolution with the iPhone and mobile. And to me, this AI is just a new platform. Just like everybody has a web app, everybody has a mobile app, everybody's going to have AI features in their apps because it's just useful. Like I think of the time when my brother-in-law was visiting from Germany, and he wants to drive my car, and I'm like, great, that's wonderful, but do I have to go and I called up my insurance company and I got put on hold for an hour to ask, does he need an international driver's license? Do I need to add him to the insurance, or can he just drive my car as my guest? Like, that would have been amazing if my insurance provider had a chatbot where I could have just asked that question, saved me an hour, and saved them, the agent time that they could have spent on more important stuff than a simple question like this, right?
Yep. Well, and I think we should probably dispel one myth here, because I think a lot of reasons that people don't do what you say and just start experimenting is two things. One, they think that being able to hook up to these models is very difficult. And they think, well, we've got to have these high-powered GPUs to make, Gen AI work. And neither one of those are true.
That is quite correct. In fact, I'm going to make a point today of running all my demos in my IDE on my laptop against Ollama, which is kind of an open source, lets you run models on your machine. I am going to use some other kind of cloud provider ones just to kind of demonstrate some of the power of Spring AI, some of the more advanced features that you can't do on your laptop yet. In my case, I happen to have a very powerful laptop, but it's not like an out of this world ridiculous machine. I think like every high-end laptop I've ever owned, I just had to wait a few years, and then my iPhone was more powerful. So if you start now, right, in a couple of years, trust me, your iPhone is going to smoke whatever laptop you have. There's going to be AI accelerator hardware in everything. So just get going.
Yep. And I'm excited about this. We all know when it comes to AI, Nick's the boss here. There's not much I know. So when you were talking about walking through, what exactly does just RAG mean? What does embeddings mean? I think there's a lot of people out there asking those same questions, but with Gen AI being such a hot topic, maybe they're a little bit embarrassed to ask, okay, well, tell me what that means, because we don't know. So I'm looking forward to the education.
Yeah, please ask questions, everybody. I have a personal policy of I'd rather look stupid by asking a dumb question than like go on not knowing the answer to the question I have. My parents used to complain I was the kid who always asked why, so yeah. I keep that up.
Well, you never learn anything if you don't ask questions. So
yes, that's right. All right, so let's get going with this then. Okay. Is all ready for some code? All right. So what I have here is it's kind of a repo which started off as a workshop, and this repo basically is on my GitHub page. I'll just you can kind of see where the link here is. I'm sure it'll get put in the show notes. But this, whatever you see here, you can git clone this, and you can reproduce whatever you're going to watch me do at home in your own environment. And so the way that I've structured this is I've structured it in terms of like how Spring AI is organized. So let me just actually bring the docs up for Spring AI. And for those who don't know what Spring AI is, it's a project from the Spring team, which is all about giving you access to AI models. So if you think about it, it's kind of this diagram here really does a great job of explaining it. You have these Gen AI models that are groundbreaking, and you've got your enterprise data that's in your databases, and you've got your existing internal APIs that are powering up your enterprise. And the question is, how do you take your data and your APIs and make them available to a Gen AI model, and then take the output of a Gen AI model and bring it back into your APIs? And like this loop here, honestly, this is an integration problem. And guess what is the best enterprise framework in the Java ecosystem for integration? It's Spring. We've only been doing it for 20 years. So I think we know a thing or two about how to solve this problem. So if you're a Spring developer or you're a platform engineer that's hosting a lot of Spring applications in your platform, Spring AI is a technology that allows you to simply and incrementally add AI to your application. That's what it does. Okay. And the way that Spring AI is organized is it's basically organized to allow you to access the various types of models. So, for example, if you would like to build a chatbot, you would need to talk to an AI chat model. And we all know there's like kind of a bit of an arms race out there where there are lots and lots of available AI providers, and they all kind of one up each other. So whatever is the top model right now, next week there'll be one that'll be like, we can do that too, or we've improved the performance, or we've improved the quality. And so as a developer, you don't want to be like, hey, I wrote my code and I wrote it against like OpenAI, and I can't now use models like that might be better than what OpenAI has because they happen to be available on Bedrock, or they happen to be available within Cloud Foundry on Taz, on the GenAI tile, or they happen to be available on the VMware Private AI Foundation, or wherever it is. We're like, as a dev, I want to use the best model that's available, that's approved in my company. Spring AI allows me to do that. I don't need to change my code in order to use different models. So what you can see here is like the crazy amount of models that is supported by Spring AI: Bedrock, Anthropic, Azure, Vertex, Grok, models from Hugging Face, Mistral, Minmax, Moonshot. I have no idea who Moonshot is. NVIDIA, right? Olama, OpenAI, a bunch of models out of China. I'm not even sure how to pronounce them, so I think it's Zifu, and Watson, whatever it is, whatever the model is, Spring AI's got your back, right? The second part in building these is that there's more than just chat model. There's also image models. So you can see here that Spring AI supports all the popular image models. There are also embedding models. And again, you can see just how extensive the support of Spring AI is with supporting all of the popular embedding models. There's also audio models. Maybe you want to convert a phone call from your call center into text, so you can summarize it quickly and like show it to the next agent that you've been transferred to, because sometimes we've all been through, you get transferred to one agent who says they're not the right person, then you get to another one who's like not the right person, and 4 agents later your issue is resolved, and you have to explain yourself every time. The other kind of key thing is vector databases. Now, vector databases are kind of a key component of this very popular retrieval augmented generation AI pattern, which we'll explain today. And of course, there's a lot of them. Why are there a lot of vector databases? Because there are a lot of databases out there, and there's 2 approaches. I already have a database like Postgres, and then Postgres adds this thing called pgvector, which you can use now as a vector database. Or you have MongoDB, and Mongo adds a vector type, and then you can use Mongo as a vector database, or Neo4j, or whatever. But there are some databases that are like Pinecone and Chroma and Milvus that are like day 0. They are like designed as explicitly as vector databases. And again, the value that Spring brings, the reason why I've been a Spring developer for so long, is I don't want to think about the low-level details of my code works with pgvector. Will it work with Redis? Yes, it will if I'm using Spring. I don't have to change my code, right? And so what we're going to do today is we're going to see the key concepts that power up this whole thing, right? Any comment? Any thoughts?
Well, and one thing I was going to add is, Spring AI. So everybody knows Spring Data. That's what makes it easy to connect to databases. Spring AI is bringing the same thing into large language models, right? The ability to be able to change when you need to, change as you innovate, or change as you experiment, being able to do that easily without having to do a lot of that hard wire up. So it kind of takes that difficulty that a lot of people are afraid of today with AI, and we're making that simple for them.
Correct. So exactly. I would only point out one thing. It's not just large language models that Spring AI supports.
Okay.
Because it's also supporting image models and audio models. And there isn't really like a limit to what Spring AI can support, because as you can see from the various types of models that are here, Spring has always had a modular architecture. And because it has a modular architecture, it has the ability to grow with the innovation in the wider industry, right? So if you think about, see, I'm really like ancient in the tech world, because 1 year of it's worse than dog years. Like 1 year in the tech industry is like a dog's lifetime. Okay, what's that? 15 years, right? So by this metric, I must be like 100 years old in the tech industry, right? And what I found, the reason why I bet on my career on Spring a long time ago, is that there's innovation that happens around in the industry, and are you on a framework that lets you harness that innovation, right? I saw that so clearly with Spring Cloud back when cloud started kind of rising up and people started developing the ideas of microservices and cloud native architecture. And all of a sudden, Spring showed up with the Spring Cloud project with all the tools I needed as a developer to harness the power of the cloud provider without me having to become a guru in AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or whatever it is. And we're doing the same for you as a developer in AI. So everything I'm going to do today, I'm going to 99% do it on my laptop with Ollama, but all of it works with all the models that are available on the cloud providers. So point is, you can go build a prototype, show your boss the value that AI can add to an existing application you have in the bank or the enterprise, wherever you work, and then say, hey, if you guys like what I see, boss, if you like what I see, we can make this happen for it with whatever is the approved AI that we're supposed to be able to use in our company.
Well, and to tie that into, TPCF and how that works. So Spring, best place to run Spring, in my opinion, is still going to be, Tanzu platform for Cloud Foundry. But we're providing all of those, right? You got the GenAI tile to help bring in those models that you may want to use that are approved. You've got, Postgres tile that provides the PG vector right there on the platform. So, Taz is really trying to make this a good play. Let's say AI is good for Taz, right? We're providing everything that you need to do that innovation and kind of get started. Like you said, just start experimenting.
Yep. It's the fastest way to get going is exactly that combo of Taz plus AI plus Spring. Whew, you're gonna be able to ship stuff really fast. All right, enough talking. Let's get into the code. How does that sound? All right. So the way that I've organized this project is to basically say I have a directory called providers. You can see here lots of different AI providers. I promised to start with Ollama because we have that on CPU workers on Taz. And I'm going to go here, and you can see I have a very simple application. It just says Ollama application, and I'm going to run it. And when I run this, it depends on these various projects that are here under APIs. Like it has a dependency on a chat project, and that will show you the features of Spring AI for chat capabilities. Now, I'm using an unusual package naming conventions. You can see chat 01, 02, 03. I'm trying to, this is an educational sample, right? So if you're studying this or playing with this at home, well, you know what? It's easy for you. You just start with 01, and then you kind of follow along what's in there. Just to show kind of a little bit of what happens when I launch this, in my dependency for the Ollama application, you'll notice down here that I have this thing called a starter. I have the Spring AI Ollama Spring Boot -starter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, by adding this, my application code is going to work and talk to Ollama, right? If, for example, I was instead doing OpenAI, then what I'm doing is I'm adding the Spring AI OpenAI Spring Boot starter to my application. And then my app is going to make requests using the OpenAI REST API protocol, right? Similar exact sort of thing. If I'm on Azure or Anthropic, it's going to be, add the Spring AI Anthropic starter. So in this example, my applications are literally like skeletons that have this dependency in them. And that's how they adapt to talking to the clouds, the different providers. Now, we have a much better solution than this on Taz with the GenAI tile, but I'm going to wait till later to talk about that. Okay.
Okay.
So where do we want to start?
Stay tuned to the end of the show.
Yes. We have so many exciting things happening in the AI and Taz that can't wait to show all of you. this is okay. So we're gonna like start with the classic kind of like tell me a joke. So I've ran the Ollama. Actually, let's actually see what model are we running with Ollama. Let's actually see first what model we're running. Okay, so right now I'm using Llama 3.1 for the actual language model. And you can see here, I'm just pointing it at my local host 11434. That's where Ollama runs. So if I now go here and I say HTTP 8080, oops, and /chat/01/joke. Okay, so where is this URL coming from? It's very simple. I've organized my code as a set of controllers, right? And this is the name of the controller, chat01, and then this one is joke. So if I say chat01/joke, it comes to this code right here. And you can see here kind of the power of Spring AI, because I have an interface called the chat model. It's like this is an abstraction of the concept of I'm talking to an AI model that can do chat. And I very simply say this.chatmodel.call, tell me a joke, right? And it comes back with, here's one. What do you call a fake noodle? And impasta, okay? I love all the dad jokes.
Dad joke central.
Yes, exactly, right? Okay, so that was a response from Ollama. All right, let's try it again. Okay, all right, now it's coming back with the same one. All right, let's now say, okay, my boss comes in and says, I don't want you to use Ollama. Okay, boss, what would you like me to use? Okay, I want you to use, let's say, OpenAI. So let's go to that. So now all I'm doing is running the OpenAI application. Now it's on port 8080. And now I'm going to make a request. And okay, now I got, sure, here's a joke for you, blah, 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 because atoms make up everything, right? Now, this second time, it went to OpenAI. I didn't even recompile my code, right? Like same exact code, no changes, working in both places. That is what I want as a developer. I want to think in terms of a model is a service I can call, and I don't care what it is, because it's just I send it a prompt, it gives me back a response. I don't need to read a training manual when I drive. Like I own a Toyota RAV4. If I get into a different car, I don't need to read its manual to drive it, right? Mm-hmm. I could just get in a car and drive it. This is what Spring AI is. It's like you learn how to use it. You learn how to use it with all the models. Does that make sense?
Yep. So going back to that, better to ask a stupid question. So it seems to me, I am not a developer. Everybody knows that. But this seems like a good way to walk through. If you've got multiple models, you get a very easy way to walk through each model to see which one kind of fits your use case better without having to do a whole bunch of changes, having to do a whole bunch of reiteration or repackaging. This seems like a good way to really test out the models to see which one works for you.
Exactly. And in fact, like this is kind of some of the cool stuff that we want to do. Is our goal in the TAS AI GenAI solutions is to make it really easy for a customer to find the right model for the application that they're using. And that requires the customer to be able to try it out, to experiment. So can I actually try out A/B test models against each other to see what works better for me in my use case? Yeah, that's going to be super easy to do. No need to change your code, right?
And it follows a lot right along with, PCF as it stands, right? That's one of the purposes of PCF is to be able to quickly iterate and test to find out what works for you. So now we're just bringing that in for the AI side.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a little bit more code here. So go ahead.
Quick question. Sorry. When you toggle between those providers, was that just a toggle of the environment variables? Or how did you switch, or how did that switch?
How did I switch? Yes, that's a great question. Okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So in the repo, I have a directory called providers, and inside of that directory is a set of Spring Boot projects. So there's a Spring Boot project for Olama, and the only source code in that project is basically just a Spring Boot main. Just please run a Spring Boot application based on the dependencies that you find on the class path, right? And what I did is I said that this particular Spring Boot project depends on Spring AI Olama Spring Boot Starter, right? So that's going to automatically bootstrap, auto-configure the application to talk to Olama. And then I included as a dependency, for example, you can see that I have the com.example chat, and that refers to the code in this API's chat folder. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I have for each of the providers, I have a bootstrap auto configuration code, and then I depend on modules on the shared code that's under APIs.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. And so so this APIs one here goes through like the different chat, embedding all this stuff. But then there's also a directory called patterns, and the patterns directory shows you higher level patterns that you would encounter when building AI powered applications. Like, for example, how do I do retrieval augmented generation? Okay, so let's build up our way. We want to get to the point where we actually understand what's in here. So let's build up our way to that. Now, I'm gonna skip over a bunch of these examples here because I'm not trying to teach everybody Spring AI, and I assume that a bunch of the audience members are platform engineers and may not be writing Spring code. And so I'm gonna jump ahead to this one here, okay? And say, okay, now you're working with these AI models, right? And what you'd like to know typically is you want to find out return JSON. So if I go something like HTTP, let's see what this does first. So 8080/chat04 plays. Okay, let's see what it comes back with. Oh, I'm running OpenAI. Okay. Okay, I'll switch it to Olama. Okay, so when you come to this one here, you can see I'm getting a chat client that Spring is giving me, Spring AI. I ask it like, hey, I'd like to have a prompt. I have a user prompt. I think I need to clean up this code. This could be simplified. But you can see that I asked it for a list of plays written by a particular author. In this case, if I don't specify the author, it uses Shakespeare. And then provide only a list, no other commentary. All right, so you have to get good at begging the AI to do the right thing. It's a little bit like asking your kid to clean their room and they go, I cleaned it. Like, what do you do? I pulled all the stuff off the floor. No. You also have to vacuum. You also have to dust. Like, you have to be kind of like every step you have to tell it what you want. It's a little bit like that with the models.
Yeah.
So you can see
that's
here,
a great analogy.
Yeah, it gave me a list, right? So I got a list, but now that's not very useful for me because typically I would like some sort of JSON because I'm integrating this into some sort of application, and it's better to have structured output. So one of the things that you can do is you can ask Spring AI to take the output that comes to request that the model return for you a structured output. So let's try this out now where we ask for plays, but we want an object, right? And what's happening here is I have a Java object with two fields, a string author and a title field. And I'm requesting that give me a list of plays written by the author, provide only the list, no other commentary. And you can see that what I got back was JSON. And that JSON was like, look, author is William Shakespeare, the title is blah, 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 right? And I didn't have to describe to the AI, hey, the model, I want you to tell me the author, the title, and like, please give it back to me in JSON. All of that stuff, begging that's under the covers was actually done for us by Spring AI, which is amazing. Because watch this. Let's actually say, add a string, publication year. Okay, let's see what happens. What do you think will happen if we do this?
It's going to add the year in.
You'll get
Yeah,
another.
we're
Not
going to end
having
up.
to change nothing.
Yep.
Survey says.
Well, we'll see. Sometimes it blows up because it's non-deterministic. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Well, and is there a way to direct it the type of output you want? If you want JSON or you want it in, XML or some other format, is there a way to direct that?
You can try. I think that with XML, like I haven't ever tried it. I think JSON is more kind of the lingua franca of the world right now. So OpenAI just added some sort of better support for this. But even if you don't have it in your model, Spring AI will support it for you. So the focus with this out of the box is on JSON. But you can see here that it added publication year, and I'm getting like a year range, right? Because I passed it in as a string, right?
Right.
Let's see what happens if we switch this to an integer. Now we should get 1 year, right? Because what Spring is doing is it's actually generating a JSON schema under the covers and instructing the language model to use that schema. All right, let's see if this works or it blows up.
And while we're waiting, so you've got all of this. This is in a public repo that people can look at. They can go see. So, at the end of this, I'll go ahead and throw it up right now while we're waiting for this to come through. But we'll put this in the show notes as well. But anybody that's interested in walking through this, you've made this available to them.
Yes, 100%. If you run into any problems or issues with it, just open up an issue on the GitHub repo. I'll fix it.
Okay.
So you can see now I actually got individual years as integers. Isn't this amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is why I was like sucked into the AI world and kind of added it to as my fourth religion in the tech world, is that I realized I don't have to be a data scientist. Like, I have taken a lot of math courses in my life, but I've forgotten all of them. Like, I have a degree in math, right? And I'm like, do I have to remember all of this linear algebra and calculus and vector calculus and all that crap? I'm like, no, I don't. I mean, I know how to call a database. I know how to put a message on a message queue. I know how to use an AI. You don't really need to know how these things work on the inside. Just like when I drive a car, I don't need to know how the engine of the car works. I can drive a car, right? So we're kind of giving you the same thing with Spring AI. So
this makes sense to me. I'm a platform engineer, but I'm seeing how this works. This is something that I could go in and do myself.
Yeah,
I can read this code enough to understand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's really showing that how simple it is to get these the Spring community empowered, right?
Yeah, and like
yeah,
I think a lot of enterprises that run Cloud Foundry and Taz in particular, they have a lot of Spring, and so this is a way for you as an enterprise to take the skill set that you have. You have all these Java Spring developers. They can quickly learn Spring AI in a few hours, like this type of workshop running through with developers. I've done it in as little as 90 minutes, where people kind of get it and they start running it, or as much as a full day. And at the end of it, people are always like, yeah, they get all the stuff working. Well, I want to show you. So we covered like the key idea of the portability of across models with Spring AI. Let's actually prove that works. Let's try this with Olama, because I was running it with OpenAI. Right, and we're going to make that request. We should get a response. Is that this idea of structured output as a thing you need when you build apps? We have that. The next thing I want to talk about this is function calling. Oh, you can see here, apparently this doesn't work. This is returning null. Why? Because I sent it to Llama 3.1. I don't know if Llama 3.1 has the same information, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't error out, which is good, right? So the next thing I want to talk about is this problem of how do I bring the data in my enterprise that's behind APIs? Like, you look at your web banking application. Your web banking app is calling some sort of API to display the list of transactions, to allow you to do money transfers, to allow you to do a bunch of stuff. Your checkout in your retail store, your mobile app, they're all talking to APIs. Like the business logic of this APIs already exists in production in your company. Now, how do I build a natural language interface for all of these applications? Like if I going back to my brother-in-law visiting me from Germany and wanting to drive my car, well, how do I find out if it's allowed? Well, I can log into my insurance company, figure out the UI, download the PDF of the policy, Control F and search for foreign driver or something like this to see if there's something that says guests are allowed to drive your car and be covered by your insurance. And so, wouldn't it be great if there was some sort of natural interface where I could ask this question? So like AI models as a new modality for interacting with apps is a done deal. You got touch and mobile, you've got web and clickety-click, and you've got CLI, and now we also have natural language as a practical way to do things. And so how do we build this? In order to build the natural language interface, you need to get at your data. And the way you get at your data is with function calling, okay? So let's take a look at like the classic example of this idea of function calling, which is I just want to know what is the current weather in a particular city. Now, how do I do that? I can go to my iPhone, look at the weather app. I can go to the weather channel, or I would like to be able to support this in some sort of question. So here, what we're doing is we're requesting, we're sending this prompt, but we're also telling Spring that, hey, we have this function called the weather function, and this weather function is capable of retrieving the details of the weather in a particular location. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the weather function is a fake service. So I have this weather service. You can see it's got some conditions, some wind directions, and it creates a random number, and then it basically generates a random temperature, a random wind direction, a random whatever. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to tell you that it's snowing, but the temperature is 100 Fahrenheit. So ignore the fact that it will tell you that, right? That's just because it's a random. I don't want to make the point isn't what this does. The point is to just like show an example of how do I integrate with an internal API in my company, right? And so I have a breakpoint in here, and then in the case of Spring AI, what I do is I basically tell Spring AI, look, I have a weather function, and I give it a description. It says, get the weather in location. And then this is the adapter code. This is the code that the model decides for this prompt, I need to get the information about the weather. It requests that the application provide it with this information, right? So I'm going to do this in layers so people can follow along what function calling really is. Right, so let's go. What's our controller? Our controller is chat05, chat05, weather. Okay, cool. It says the current weather in Toronto is cloudy with a temperature of 24.2, humidity is 50%, the wind is 14 kilometers from the northeast direction. All right, let's actually have more fun and debug this thing. All right, and let's make sure we have this guy here. We'll put a breakpoint here. Okay, so our function takes this weather request, which is simply the city, and it takes the weather service. All right, so see what happens if we run it again. Ta-da! Okay, so we're on our controller. We're about to ask the AI that we would like to know the weather in a particular city. So we create our prompt. We tell it that we have this function, and we call it. and let's see what happens. So when I hit play on this, what you should expect is it's not going to return the answer. I'm going to end up stopping inside of my weather service function because it needs to know the weather. All right, run. Aha. I ended up there. Let's take a look at the command line. I still haven't gotten a response, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my request through Spring AI went to Olama, went to the Facebook Llama 3.1 model. The Llama 3.1 model was presented with the prompt that says, what is the current weather in Toronto? Because that's the default city, and I live in Toronto. That's why it's default. And Llama 3.1 model decided that, hey, you have a function that can tell me the weather in a city. Can you please call that function and give me back the answer? Okay. So this is why our code is currently in the weather service. You can see the city that was passed in is Toronto. And we're going to go through and we're going to create a weather response object. And we're going to set the city to the Toronto. We're going to come up with a random temperature. And we're going to pick a condition, set a humidity, set a wind speed, right? And a wind direction and the time. And there you go. That's our kind of current weather in Toronto according to the random weather generator. And if I now come back, you can see I'm actually in this adapter code that's connecting an internal API in my enterprise to the model. And I go boom. And now I get back a response. So the actual object that was returned, it was just a bunch of like a JSON object, you can think of it, with just a bunch of fields. The formatting of that into the current weather in Toronto, that was done by the language model. Is this making sense?
Absolutely.
That's pretty awesome to see how you can call functions. And I would assume in this case, in a real world, you call not a random weather generator, but maybe an actual service that provides the weather, right?
Yeah, so you can imagine like going back to my brother-in-law insurance situation. I would have loved to be able to log into my insurance company, see a chatbot, and say, "Hey, my brother-in-law is visiting from Germany. Do I need to add him to my insurance? He's going to be driving, blah blah blah." And so what would happen is that chatbot, whoever codes that chatbot, would have a set of functions to support that, right? One of those functions might be a function that says, I can get, like in the description of the function configuration, this was get the weather in location. You might have a function that says, get the policy rules, the insurance policy rules for a particular customer, right? And when you invoke it, you pass in the customer ID. Well, how does the AI, how do I know in the chatbot who the customer ID is? Because, well, I logged in to my online portal for my insurance company, right? And so people are quite concerned about data privacy with AI. It's a legitimate concern. And one way to deal with that is to minimize the amount of data you give to the AI. Well, how do you minimize that amount of data you give to the AI? You run it through these functions, right? And you just get just the bare minimum that the AI needs.
Well, and when I think about, like you're saying, going through your automobile policy, what's the policy getting returned? What comes to my mind is RAG, right? The retrieval augmented generation. I mean, do these two things work together? Do you put chatbots above RAG? Is RAG got a chatbot built in? How does exactly does that work?
Right. So the way it works is kind of going back to the overview page here, right? Is that you have your data and you have your APIs. So RAG is wonderful when that piece of data doesn't change, right?
Okay.
So, for example, that could work very well for the insurance policy, right? But think of the millions of customers an insurance company might have, right? And you wouldn't necessarily want to run a RAG search on all 1 million policies that are issued. So you might want to combine them together. So when you want to bring transactional data to an AI model, function calling is the game,
Okay.
is
That
the
makes
right way
sense.
to do it, right? When you have static data like documents and manuals and stuff, then RAG works really well. So they're complementary techniques. They're not competing whatsoever. You ideally
Gotcha.
want both.
Okay.
You always want both if you can get your hands on both.
Well, and
Yeah.
James comes out with saying blending functions into natural language could be such a powerful combo when integrated in with enterprise internal APIs. And I think that's kind of what you're showing here.
Yes. And for all of the Cloud Foundry users out there, like to build a useful application for your enterprise, you're going to need this combo, and you got it. Like we have all this stuff within Taz for you. So
Yep.
Exciting times ahead.
Yep. And I think, that was kind of.
Shout out to all the chat for sure.
Oh, go ahead, Ted. Or Ted.
Yeah.
Nick.
Sorry, we're lagging a little, but I just want to shout out to all the chat going on. It's been
Yep.
good. Thanks to James and Corby and Deshaun. Thanks for hanging in there and providing useful insights.
All right, let's try something interesting, and this is going to start exposing some of the problems you run into when you do this. So now I have a slightly different prompt. The prompt says, I'm traveling to a particular city. What kind of clothes should I pack, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's implied in this? If you're going to create a packing list, you should check the weather report before you travel. So let's see if Llama 3.1 running on my laptop, right, is able to process this request. So now we're going to try pack. All right, so we're getting the same thing. It's decided to call the function. Okay. But will we? Oh my God, it worked. See, I ran it earlier just before the show, and it told me that there was no packing function. It decided not to call it. But now I run it and it worked. So I wasn't able to show you this thing saying, oh, you have no packing function. It was smart enough to figure out that I should do that, right? Because you can see here the temperature is expected to be 12 degrees Celsius, right? I don't even give it the temperature in Fahrenheit. It did the conversion to Fahrenheit by itself.
Nice.
And then it's like, it'll be a bit chilly and windy, blah, blah, blah. And here's the suggested packing list.
Very
Isn't that
cool.
amazing?
Yep.
Please tell me, like, for all of the AI doomers out there, right? Like, we're not talking about like AI, like Star Trek level AI, Skynet taking over the world. I'm really most excited about these stupid, mundane use cases. I'll tell you right now, my favorite usage of all time of microprocessors and CPUs is automatic soap dispensers. I don't know how I ever lived. Like, to think about like this like amazing human invention called a microprocessor, right? And all the places that microprocessor, just walking into my bathroom and going, putting my hand underneath and getting the right amount of soap, right? Like, it just blows my mind how much of a quality of life improvement this is. Because you got kids, otherwise stuff is going to be, the soap will be everywhere, right?
Yep.
So it's all these like things that on the surface look like they're, I don't know, not very, this is not curing diseases. This isn't curing cancer. This isn't solving the climate crisis, right? Like, I don't care about if AI helps us solve those, great, but I'll just take the wins on, like, you know what? Help me make a packing list.
Yeah. How much time does that cut out of your day? Another interesting thing that James brought up was, he hopes that Spring AI and CF can bring natural language affordance to enterprise apps. But from what you're showing us, if we combine Spring AI, the GenAI tile, and CF, I guess the really question is, why aren't you doing it now? I mean, to your point, just get started. This looks like something that people can start doing today.
Oh yeah, and like if folks want to try it out, this particular repo that you have here, we're not going through it in full, but this is actually available as a workshop from the Tanzu team. So just reach out to your Tanzu team, and we'll show up, and we'll happily take all your developers through this and teach them how to do this in their own environment. So this was the idea of function calling that I wanted to cover, and the next kind of concept I want to cover before we get into RAG is this idea of how do you control what the AI can do and make sure that it doesn't answer questions that aren't relevant. So I've got the weirdest prompt ever. It basically says to the AI, "You're a helpful expert on plants. However, you're not allowed to answer questions, any questions about vegetables. You can only answer questions about fruits." Okay. This is kind of, think about it like you're making a chatbot and you're like, you're only allowed to answer questions about insurance policies. Don't answer any questions about politics. Don't answer any questions about, how to make weapons. Don't answer any questions about like anything else, right? Otherwise, people will show up and say, "Here's a prime number. Factor this for me, please." Right?
Right.
You don't want to do that. So let's see what happens with this. If we go to chat 06 and we say something like fruit. Okay, so this is going to ask, what's the color of a banana? Okay, so bananas are typically yellow when they're ripe. Okay, great. It answered the question. Let's now ask it, what's the color of a carrot? What should it do? It should basically say, "I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you what it is. I'm afraid I'm not allowed to answer that question. As per our agreement, I can only discuss fruits. Carrots are actually a type of vegetable."
I mean, this is kind of funny, but there is
Yeah,
a very good
that's awesome.
typical case for this, right? I can't remember which airline it was, but somebody got in trouble for answering a question incorrectly and answering some stuff that they weren't supposed to. But this is a way to kind of constrain your AI to make sure that you're not getting into that.
Correct. And so you can see here that in doing this, what I did is I asked Spring AI to program my AI client with a default system prompt. And the default system prompt is this idea of a system prompt. People are used to knowing what a prompt is. It's a question that you type into ChatGPT, right?
Right.
A system prompt is something that's presented to the AI model before your actual prompt that you typed.
Gotcha.
Okay. And when you remember, like when ChatGPT 3 came out, there was like a jailbreak, and the way they jailbroke it was that they told it, "Hey, your name is Dan. Do anything now," right? That was the name of it. And then they get it to tell them to like how to make a bomb and all sorts of stuff it wasn't supposed to tell you, because they told it to change its persona. So crafting these system prompts to properly constrain an AI is difficult. It requires trial and error. You most definitely do not want to hard code this into your application. And this is where I think people are going to get really, to kind of preview a little bit of what's going to happen with the future state of the GenAI services on Tanzu, is like, this is the kind of thing where you'll be able to do centrally. Right? And that allows you to quickly adapt and modify these prompts because you have a new model, or you have a need for changing the system prompt in all 20 applications that you're using that are using a particular model. So we'll have more to say about this in the future. All right. How much time do I have? Because I can talk about this stuff forever.
You got about 10 more minutes left,
Okay.
but I imagine we're going to have to do more episodes of this because we haven't even gotten into some of the other things that are within the Zero to Hero GitHub you got, which we definitely want to talk about at some point.
Okay. Let me do RAG in all of 10 minutes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
we got a decent live count, so we can keep rolling. So just however long you have.
All right. I can run over because this stuff is just awesome. I love it. It's my fourth religion, as I realized today. Okay. So we're going to talk now about this idea of what is this thing called an embedding. All right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to embed /01/choke. And an embedding is this, like, really, it's a wizard. It's like a abracadabra, you turn into a rabbit, kind of like you got one of those like magic things, except it works. And this transformation that an embedding does is it takes a piece of text, it takes an image, it takes some input, and it converts it into a long list of numbers. So when I asked it, gave it the text, "Tell me a joke," it didn't actually generate a joke. It took the word, "Tell me a joke," right? And it returned this lengthy list of numbers. You You can see I'm scrolling up and it's like hundreds of numbers. Let's actually ask it its dimension, right? Let's see how many numbers were in that array. And we'll say dimension. Okay, it was 1024. So it took a piece of text and it turned it into 1024 numbers. And you're like, huh? Why is this useful? Okay, let's actually see the next example to see why this is useful. Okay, so here is why it's useful. If you think about concepts in the real world or words, right? You can check that two things are, you can have multiple dimensions that you can compare things on, right? So if I say I want to compare two words, man and man, man and woman, man and dirt, king and queen, queen and the queen word for queen in French, queen and the word for queen in Arabic, banana and car, happy and joyful, happy and sad, okay? In some respects, you could look at something like happy and sad and you can say, well, those are the exact opposites. On one dimension, they are, but they're also emotions, like they're human emotions. So on the dimension of emotion, you could say that happy is an emotion and dirt is not an emotion, right? So if you're trying to, what embeddings do is they're a magical way of taking text and words and then classifying it on hundreds, like in this case is 1,000 dimensions. I don't even know what the dimensions are. I don't think the people who design these models know what those are. The point is you can actually compare the vectors that get generated to see how close they are. So if I now go here to embed 02 words, oh, I have it running in debug mode. Let's actually, okay. What happens here is that it does what's called a similarity search. This is a math formula called cosine similarity. Don't worry about what that means. The key thing here is that according to the embedding model, if I have two vectors, two embedding vectors, two lists of numbers, I run this mathematical calculation on it. And if the answer is 1, that indicates they're perfectly matched. Those two words are very close to each other, or two sentences, or two pieces of text. And if I get an answer of 0, that means they're like completely not the same, okay? So if you look at these ones here, what we're doing is we're calculating how similar are these two words together. So man and man, no surprise, it came back with a 1. They're the same thing, right? And then this list is also sorted by how close they are to each other. Like it's sorted by the similarity score. So happy and joyful, no surprise, for whatever reason, this particular model calculated that as 0.7922, whatever, right? Does that make sense? Then king and queen, it calculated as a similarity of 0.6. Happy and sad was 0.6. And like that's kind of interesting because like I don't know how to interpret these numbers. Like they have no meaning. Like you're not supposed to try to guess what the number is. But it's not really surprising that king and queen and happy and sad are like kind of like king and queen are the opposite roles, right?
Right.
Happy and sad are both emotions, but they're the opposite of each other. So it's interesting that they come fairly close to each other. Is this helping you all understand what an embedding really is?
Yep.
And then you got things like, man and dirt. That comes up as 0.5, so it's less similar. Banana and car. Okay, queen and queen, but in a different language. Look at that. It shows up as 0.5. That means that the embedding model you're using only understands English. In theory, if you had an embedding model which was multilingual, this should sort up to be exactly like close to 1.
Right.
Okay, so let's actually see what's happening here. Let's actually change this. So I go here and you can see I'm running this embedding model max by embed large. I found this on Hugging Face. Let's take this one out and let's tell it we want to use the embedding model from Llama 3.1. So let's stop this app and let's run it again. Okay. Well, we should hopefully get a different list. Okay. So on this one, man and man, happy and joyful, king and queen. You can see this is different. Now this is 0.7. Before it was 0.69. So that's a different model. This is the Llama 3.1 embedding model. And again, this doesn't seem to be at all aware of at least Arabic, because queen and the word for queen in Arabic were like completely like not similar to each other. Car and banana weren't close to each other. Queen and rain. Okay, let's try this one now with ChatGPT, with the OpenAI embedding models. So let's see if we get a different answer. Okay, and let's try that again. You notice how I just switched models and it just works, right?
I was actually just fixing to make
Very
that
nice.
comment.
It's crazy, right? So again, no surprise, man and man are the same. King and queen are fairly close. Man and woman are fairly close. And like king and queen, man and woman, happy and joyful, they're all kind of like falling in fairly close ranges. Happy and sad, banana and car. Again, look at this. That is actually quite interesting. You now all of a sudden have queen in English and queen in Arabic as showing up as 0.8 similarity. This is very, very different than like, what was it? 0.0 in here, right? And where was queen and the queen in French? Okay, like 0.4. So it's somehow like the Llama 3.1 embedding model was maybe more aware of French than it is of Arabic, right? Whereas the OpenAI embedding model was like nailing it. It was like, yeah, these two things are pretty much the same. Like
Right.
0.85, 0.815, like that's pretty close.
But banana and car is higher,
I
right?
know, I don't know what these
Yeah.
numbers mean, right?
Yeah.
But I hope people are kind of grasping that there's this like magic box called an embedding. I feed it something, it comes back with a bunch of numbers. I use those numbers to calculate and get a single answer, and I can sort those results, right?
Right.
Now, this is going to take us to the next step, and maybe we'll like if we're out of time, we'll have to pause and continue with the RAG in a future session. But
I would definitely say that we do this. We've already got comments wanting to see a part 2, probably part 3 of this. I definitely say we take this into another episode. We are coming up almost 10 minutes over here, so.
Okay, all right. Just give me 1 second just to wrap it, so we don't lose the train of thought on this.
Okay.
So going back here now, what can I do with these similarity scores? Okay, so what I have here is a list of 25 motivational quotes. Okay, like education is the most powerful weapon which you can change the world. Nelson Mandela, right? No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others, right? So these, I put them in 5 categories. Why education is important, why it's good to be kind to others, contributing to others, value of hard work, and how to overcome failure, okay? And I would like to do a search kind of like, I would like to find a motivational quote for a certain situation. Like, my kid failed the math class, okay? I want it to come back with some appropriate response to this, right? And so you can see here that in response to this, the app came back with 3 suggestions, okay, sorted by how close they are. So my kid failed math class. It says the roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Okay, that's Aristotle saying that supposedly. And then you got failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. I've not failed. I found 10,000 ways that don't work. So out of this like list, like there's no SQL query, no where statement, nothing. There's just like I take the input that comes in, the topic that we're searching for a quote on, and what do? we take that and we calculate its embedding, and then ignore the structure of this Java code is not important. What's important is that once we have our input, we calculated the embedding topic, we go through and we check how close this vector is to the other vectors that we have in the database, and we compare against all 25 of them. And then what I'm doing is I'm returning the top 3.
Very nice.
And that is the first step. The similarity search is the first step when you're doing RAG. And so let's just try one more example just to kind of really hammer home on this. Inspire an angry customer to be patient. Okay. What is a good match for this? This is semantic search. This is searching for things on what they mean in human language. Oh wow! It gave me back failure. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service to others. It's a tough one. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Okay. I don't know why it said that, but that's what it came back with. Okay. All right.
Right.
Okay. How about we try? I just want to know. Okay. Let's try this one here. I just want to see what this will do. It's fun to try these with like different models, and this tells you that you really have to experiment to know what's right in your situation for your data set, your use case, your environment. And so, yeah. Okay. So I'd like people to, I'm maybe sending out a fundraising email. Please donate to the Cancer Foundation, blah, blah, blah. And what would be good quotes to include in that, right? Carry out a random act of kindness. A single act of kindness is great. No one has ever gotten poor by giving, right? Okay. Does this make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you could do something with like a vision model too, right? Maybe like show me images of happy people or sad people or things like that. I would imagine.
Yes. Or find all the cat pictures in my catalog, right?
Well, Adib, this has been extremely interesting.
Exactly.
Absolutely interesting. We've got a lot of comments coming out there. We're definitely going to end up having to ask you to come back and do a part 2, maybe a part 3 of this, because I don't think we've even gotten halfway through your GitHub here and what all this means.
Yep. I would be very happy to. I hope I've delivered on the promise of explaining the concepts, the power of Spring AI, how this all comes to. We're going to eventually see how it all comes together in the platform in a way to turbocharge your AI efforts.
Well, and I think if we take away one thing that come out of this is your kind of quote, just start experimenting, right? So if you're on task today or PCF today and you want to start experimenting, GenAI tile, Spring AI, go look at Adib's GitHub here.
Yep.
Walk through this 0 to hero. This is going to get you started. No better way to start learning than just doing.
Thank you.
Yep, and we're more than happy to get you started on the platform side and the dev side. So we have a story for both. So
that's right. And I think maybe in one of these other episodes we'll talk about, because right now this theme's very dev focused, but I can see things like this being incorporated into automation. Hey, help me upgrade X tile, right? And kicking off an automation series here. So I think there's a lot here that we could do. On that, I think we'll bring you back for at least another one, if not more of these. Hell, I think, Adib, this could become a regular series just like we're doing with security. This is something that's high on everybody's mind and everybody wants to know it. And in your way of explaining this, hey, it was Nikki proof. I got it. So if I can get it, anybody can get it.
Nice.
And
I second that for sure.
Yep. So really appreciate all the people listening, staying long with us today. We went about 15 minutes over. Appreciate the audience sticking in. Remember, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Subscribe is going to let you know when we come back out. Keep an eye out on the Cloud Foundry Weekly LinkedIn, me and Nick's LinkedIn as well. And if you're interested in reaching out to Adib, here's his LinkedIn. Please reach out to him and add him. All of this stuff will go into the show notes at the end of the show, so come back and look there, as well as the link to the GitHub, the Spring AI 0 to Hero, if you want to start walking through this. But stay tuned for a second episode. Thank you, Adib.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, you know how we sign it off. So, CF bye, everybody.
CF bye.
CF bye.